Cable Bahamas has been and continues to be a positive shot in the arm for our summer camps. We look forward to it. Without Cable Bahamas, I don't know if we will succeed, because we look forward to the funding and we are very appreciative, particularly the Cable Cares program. We are very appreciative to what they do.
We thank the Cable Cares Foundation, which would have given into this program, and it's going to pay dividends in the long run because each one of these children are affected.
Well, Cable Bahamas Foundation has helped us in a huge way. We are out there looking for all kind of help, and I am so happy that the Cable Foundation didn't decline us based on the economy and what is going on today.
So they've been with us for a long time, and we look for them to be with us for many years to come.
A man shot and killed during a gunfight at a nighttime wake. Bahamas Against Crime says the nation needs to stop twiddling its thumbs on the issue. The F&M chairman on one former PLP MP's scary assessment of the Christie administration. Plus, children's rights activists call for clarity on Marco's Law. We've got those stories and more coming up tonight. I'm Dana Smith, and NB12 Weekend starts right now. Top news tonight, a bloody weekend for police as 2 people were murdered and several others were shot during 3 separate incidents. The most recent incident happened in Pinewood Gardens, where authorities say 3 gunmen opened fire on a group of people this afternoon, killing one of them. Head of the Central Detective Unit, Chief Superintendent Paul Roll, said the victim was standing with a group when a car pulled up and the shooter emerged. It was an emotional scene as family members of the victim broke down in tears over the news that their loved one had been killed.
We know that the victim was standing in the street along with a group of persons when a person pulled up in a silver vehicle. 3 of them exited and began shooting into the crowd as the man ran. One was struck. He was pronounced dead on the scene here in Jombe Street.
And just before police responded to this scene, they were at another shooting incident over at Fox Hill Park. Roll said a man and a woman were shot by gunmen who pulled up in a champagne-colored car.
Around 2:40 p.m. this afternoon, the police received reports of gunshots being discharged in the Fox Hill area. Officers responded to that scene, where we later learned that a male and a female were sitting on the park when the rain came down, and shortly afterwards the persons pulled up in a champagne color vehicle, exited, discharged shots, shooting both of those individuals. They were transported to Princess Margaret Hospital, where they are listed right now in serious condition.
Roll said it was while police were processing that scene that they received reports of the nation's latest murder in Pinewood. He appealed to anyone with information on either incident to contact police.
An appeal to members in this community, as well as the Fox Hill community, who would have seen anything, to help us to advance these investigations so that we can bring these persons responsible to justice.
These latest incidents come one day after a man was killed and 2 others were shot at a wake off Mackey Street. Roll said shortly after 11 last night, officers received reports of gunshots being fired at Shady Tree Lane off Mackey Street. There, they met a man lying on the ground with multiple gunshot wounds.
We're not quite certain what occurred, but at least at the end of the day, one individual is dead from gunshot.
The victim was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say hundreds of people were gathered at Shady Tree Lane last night to attend the wake when a fight broke out, resulting in an exchange of gunfire. Another man and a woman were also shot during the incident and transported to hospital. The man is listed in serious condition and the woman remains in stable condition. Roll last night said given the number of people who attended the wake, someone must have seen what happened, and he appealed to eyewitnesses to come forward and contact police.
I believe that when this incident happened, there could have been about 200 to 300 persons out here attending this event and who must have seen what took place.
However, police did manage to find one suspected shooter.
Shortly after this shooting, officers, while responding here, observed a white Honda Accord traveling at a high rate of speed on the Mackey Street area, where they brought it to a stop and searched a male, recovered a firearm from him.
Roll said although police have one suspect, they believe there's more.
At least we have one person in custody who we are going to be speaking to in regards with this, but we believe that there would have been more than one shooter.
As the bloodshed continues, Bahamas Against Crime Executive Director Reverend C.B. Moss says it's time for Bahamians to stop twiddling their thumbs and acting like nothing's wrong. Moss suggested government has shown a lack of leadership when it comes to crime, and the country needs to stop pretending that there is no crisis.
Well, I'm saddened, but I'm also angered by the fact that this nation is just twiddling its thumbs while this situation is getting out of control. Not only have we seen the murder rate hit triple digits again, but it's going to get worse. We have had further warnings from the Canadian and the British governments to their citizens about operating in New Providence, but we are acting as if there's nothing wrong. We do not have a crisis.
Moss said it's unfortunate the nation's leadership is not present on the issue, and he called on government to do more to combat crime, explaining crime and safety must be the top issues.
The government needs to lead, you see, because it is the government's responsibility of any country to provide a reasonable level of security for its citizenry. That's a government's primary responsibility, not economics, not road repairs, jobs and all that, security. And until the government accepts that we have a major security problem in this country and respond accordingly, we're going to continue to see what's happening.
Moss said government's response to crime has been inadequate and the fear of crime is far too high. He called on Bahamians to demand the nation's leaders take appropriate action in the fight against crime, explaining it's clear that times have changed.
There was a time when we could have reposed on the beach with a friend to observe the setting of the sun. You can't do that now. There was a time when one could go out to social activities outside of their immediate area of influence. You really cannot do that now in safety. So the level of threat to our people is far too high and something must be done.
F&M Chairman Michael Pintard says former Progressive Liberal Party MP Philip Galanis' scary assessment of the current state of affairs inside the PLP government only validates and confirms what the opposition has been saying all along, that this Christie administration was not ready on day one and it's still not ready. Galanis told NB12 that based on this administration's current trajectory, the PLP would lose the next general election, warning that government only has about 8 months to turn things around. But Pintard said that's not going to be the case.
The reality is the Progressive Liberal Party indicated that they would be ready on day one. We are now about to move into full election mode as a country, and they are still trying to find their footing. They have stumbled from controversy to controversy or mishandling of the initiatives that they have put forward. Again, we don't believe that 8.5 months would reveal anything different. In fact, we are very concerned that there may be more revelations of wrongdoing and there would be more missteps by this administration.
Pintard said while the FNM has continuously provided compelling evidence of the lackluster and ineffective leadership of the current administration, validation of the same by one of the PLP's prominent members lends credibility to the opposition's observations. Pintard said Bahamians are extremely weary of the constant rhetoric, inaction, lack of discipline, and shuffling of Prime Minister Christie and his government. He asserted Christie shuffles in the face of increasing murders and serious crime, high unemployment, increased cost of living, and an ever-increasing misery and despair index. And Pintard said it's time for him to go.
Mr. Christie should join the ranks of elder statesmen and use the remaining energy that he has to share ideas with those who are minded to govern. But his time has come and gone in the sense that he's not sharing any innovative idea. He clearly lacks the energy to do the job, and there's widespread disenchantment with his leadership.
Galanis said if the PLP is to have a shot at winning, it needs to take decisive action, including electing new leadership. Galanis has endorsed Deputy Prime Minister Philip Brave Davis for the next leader of the PLP. But Pintard said the only thing that could be worse than a Christie victory at the upcoming PLP convention would be the elevation of his current deputy as his replacement. Pintard charged that Davis has failed to address the most basic needs of his constituents, and his long-time excuse that he did not have the power of government behind him is no longer relevant, as the PLP has been the government for more than 3 years.
One way to judge the suitability of someone to lead is to carefully assess how are they performing in the position they presently have, and how have they performed in positions they've held in the past. Mr. Davis has failed miserably as a member of parliament for Cat Island, Rumkey, and St. Salvador. And again, today, if you were to visit those islands, and he ought to take the media to the islands that he represents to show what he has accomplished.
Local activists are applauding the government's recent announcement that portions of Marco's law have been enacted, but they insist there still needs to be clarity on a number of issues, including how the Marco alert system works. Jasmine Brown reports.
For years, many have called on the government to enact Marco's Law, insisting the government has continued to drag its feet. But now members of Rise Bahamas say it's time for the public education campaign to begin, particularly when it comes to the Marco's alert system. Under the Mandatory Action Rescuing Children Operation, or Marco Alert, when a child is reported missing and authorities are satisfied that there is a risk of harm or death, the Commissioner of Police will be required to use the alert. Once the alert is issued, radio stations, television broadcasts, text message, electronic network system, billboards, and other means necessary will be used for dissemination. Despite what is outlined by law, Rise Bahamas members say there are still so many unknowns about the alert system.
The Marco's Law alert has been enacted, but the tremendous challenge now is that what is it? How does it work? There's been no public consultation to say exactly how it works. So if a Marco's alert was to go out today, what do? Nobody knows.
I'm very pleased to now understand that the Marco's alert segment of Marco's Law has been enacted, and we're just curious as to when the public education campaign, like Duran said, will begin, and if there will actually be a department set up within law enforcement that is specifically assigned to deal with Marco's Alert and Marco's Law.
During a national address on crime late last month, Minister of National Security Dr. Bernard Nottage said there have been 2 cases where the alert system has resulted in the safe return of children to their family.
Not only that he said that 2 alerts went out, he said that they were very successful. And I think he'll have to elaborate on that so we can have a good understanding of exactly what he was talking about, because I surely don't know. I don't recall any Marco's alerts going out, so I don't know what he was talking about.
On September 2nd, Social Services Minister Melanie Griffin tabled the appointed day notice of the Child Protection Amendment Act 2014, which states that it came into operation on August 26. That ensured that some provisions contained in Marco's law are brought into force. The changes are the direct result of the murder of 11-year-old Marco Archer, who was found dead on September 28, 2011, several days after he was reported missing. Kofi Goodman was convicted of the murder and sentenced to death. In December 2013, when legislation was being debated in the House of Assembly, Dr. Nottage said Marco's family wrote him shortly after the boy's death and recommended implementing an alert for missing children and a sexual offenders register. The sexual offenders register would place all persons who are convicted of sexual offenses on the proposed list.
When we look at proposing regulations for Marco's law, the sex offenders registry side of it, we have to be careful and calculated and not just run on emotions with how we, establish the protocols and regulations surrounding it. So I think that definitely needs to be another component that we agitate for as soon as we're done with the alert. Move on to how do we put together a registry protocol that makes sense for the Bahamas, and considering that we have such a small population and everybody knows everybody.
Meantime, according to Nottage, a sexual offenders register is currently being prepared. Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Brown.
F&M Senator Carl Bethel is hitting back at criticisms from government that his comments following the court's decision to appoint provisional liquidators were unpatriotic. Bethel told NB12 last week the order figuratively places a loaded gun to the head of the developer, prompting Attorney General Allison Maynard Gibson to voice her concerns about a lack of patriotism in the F&M.
The PLP government has a nasty habit of trying to convert any criticism of their actions into being either an attack upon some other institution or showing a lack of patriotism. They also refuse to take any responsibility for their own actions and too often resort to name calling. This political rhetorical device has once again been relied upon by the Attorney General in mischaracterizing the statements that I made concerning the appointment of provisional liquidators of Bahama.
Bethel explained his criticisms were directed at the government and not the judiciary, noting it was the government that intervened to block the Bahamar U.S. bankruptcy orders from being recognized in the Bahamas and then commence the winding up proceedings.
Nothing that I said was an attack upon the courts or the judiciary. Judges do not invent court orders out of thin air. They rule on what is placed before them. It is the government which sought the appointment of provisional liquidators of Bahama. It is the government which, through that order, has placed the figurative loaded gun to the head of the developer, not the court. Any suggestion by members of the government that criticism of the government's deliberate actions is a criticism of the court or Justice Winder is absolutely disingenuous and false. Judges do not bring litigation to themselves. People bring litigation to the courts.
Bethel noted the lives and hopes of thousands of young Bahamians rest upon the fate of Bahamar, and he called on government to accept responsibility, get real, and get Bahamar open.
The government had one job to do in terms of the economic development of the Bahamas. That job was get Bahamar open. They have failed miserably and are now compounding their miserable failure.
You're watching the best in Bahamian news. There's more when NB12 returns.